This talk was given by Roshi Rafe Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is March 30th, 2024, and I'd like today to look at a koan that is a wonderful connection to the spring. So we're going to look at koan 36 in the Blue Cliff record, Hekigun Roku in Japanese, Pien Lu in Chinese. And it is Ch'ang Sha goes for a stroll in the hills, could be titled Ch'ang Sha goes for a walk, something like that. So the story is quite simple and kind of interesting. One day, Ch'ang Sha, and that would be Chosa in Japanese, Ch'ang Sha was Chinese, his name, or not given name, but his practice name, his Dharma name, went for a walk in the mountains. He, or sometimes it says, went for a walk or a stroll in the hills. When he returned to the gate of the monastery, the head monk said, "Master, where have you been?" Ch'ang Sha said, "I've come from strolling about in the hills." The head monk's son said, "Where did you go?" "First, I went pursuing the fragrant grasses. Then I returned following the falling flowers." The head monk said, "You are full of the spring, aren't you?" Ch'ang Sha said, "It even surpasses the autumn dew dripping on the lotuses." Hsueh, of course, the original compiler of what later was completed as the Blue Cliff record, writes or comments, "Thanks for your reply." Some translations say, "I'm grateful for that answer. It even surpasses the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers." And Hsueh says, "I'm grateful for that answer." So a little bit of background. To go to the Gateless Barrier, case 25, which is one of my favorites, it's Yangshan's sermon from the third seat. This is background to Ch'ang Sha, as you'll see. By the time of the incident or dream related in that koan, where Yangshan dreamt he was up at Maitreya's palace and was asked to give a Teisho. By that point in his life, Yangshan was known as Little Shakyamuni, which is high praise indeed. Little Buddha, pretty great. And he was an important teacher. With his teacher, Kuei-shan, who you might remember, Daishan visited while carrying his bundle, and that was last week's Teisho. He created the Kuei-yang school of Zen, known for its emphasis on harmony. Now, when Yangshan was a young monk, and Ch'ang Sha, who's of course the core of today's koan and Teisho, was his elder, they were out walking together. And Yangshan, the younger of the two, pointed to the moon and said, "Everyone has it, but few know how to use it. Everyone has it, but few know how to use it." Ch'ang Sha responded saying, "How will you use it?" Very direct. How will you use it? Alas, at this point, Yangshan was young and he dithered, at which Ch'ang Sha, who we're seeing in today's Teisho and koan, knocked him to the ground and trampled on him. Yangshan got up, dusted himself off, and exclaimed, "What a tiger you are!" And after that, Ch'ang Sha was known as the Great Tiger. Now, in this current Teisho and koan, Ch'ang Sha is rather like Daishan, who you'll remember started out like a house on fire, but then became much more subtle when he was older. However, Eiken Roshi feels that for the two men, their characters were quite different. Deshan seems to have been most at home in vast emptiness, while Ch'ang Sha was a man of the world, which meant he was pretty much at home wherever he was. This makes him a good exemplar for us who, like most Zen students today, are lay people working to bring practice realization alive while living lives with jobs, responsibilities, relationships, and careers as parents, partners, friends, activists, and citizens. Ch'ang Sha is known for a poem that appears in the important 46th case of the Gateless Barrier, Shishuang, Step from the Top of the Pole. To quote Eiken Roshi, the story behind that koan is as follows. Ch'ang Sha and the monk Hsueh trained together under Nanchuan, that would be Nansen in Japanese. In due time, these two brother monks became independent. Ch'ang Sha became abbot of a large training center. Hsueh went to live in a hermitage in the mountains. How is brother Hsueh getting along these days? Ch'ang Sha wondered. He sent a monk to call on him with instructions about what to say. The monk arrived and asked Hsueh, "What about when you had not yet met Nanchuan?" Hsueh sat silently. The monk asked, "What about after you met Nanchuan?" Hsueh said, "Nothing special." The monk returned to Ch'ang Sha and told him what had happened. In response, Ch'ang Sha then spontaneously said, and here's the very important poem that appears in that case, stepping from the top of a pole. You who sit on the top of 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and worlds of the 10 directions are your total body. You who sit on the top of a 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and worlds of the 10 directions are your total body. So in today's koan, we meet a mature and subtle Ch'ang Sha, someone who's no longer trampling on his fellows. Maturing, not simply aging, is what ongoing Zen practice is all about, as we saw in our trilogy of Teishos on Deshan. Deshan, as you remember, was an expert on the Diamond Sutra, and he headed south to rout out the Zen devils who claimed that Buddhahood could be realized in this lifetime. An old woman selling tea gave him a glimpse of the real Diamond Sutra, not simply the one on the page. And later on, after his own realization at Dragon Pond, Deshan burned all his notes and treatises, proclaiming that all the knowledge of all the secrets of the world added up to no more than a drop of water tossed into a vast ravine compared to realization of one's own mind. And then he stormed off to challenge all comers. In time, even he entered into a selfless and seasoned maturity. So too, Ch'ang Sha. In this springtime koan, we find the tiger at home with its cub, showing a relaxed and playful nature. Yamada Roshi, commenting on this case, says that a person's character changes as their practice realization matures. If we're lucky and we live long, we may also find that age and experience bring a wisdom that had not been accessible to us when we were young. Yamada Roshi says that as part of our responsibility to the Dharma, we should take care of our health so we can live a lengthy life. Continuous practice plus long life creates the best foundation for becoming not just elderly, but genuine elders. Harada Roshi, the abbot of Hoshinji, Yasutani Roshi's, and for his first 3 solid years of practice, Kapla Roshi's main teacher, said that when he was young, he had such a terrible temper, it might have landed him in prison. But as his practice matured, he learned how to use that anger rather than be used by it. It wasn't wasted. It became something that gave him backbone as a teacher. So one day, Ch'ang Sha went for a stroll in the hills, and then he returned. He walked through meadows and glades, groves and foothills, up steep inclines and down precipitous descents, encountered gentle slopes and rigorous climbs, all sorts of ups and downs. When he returned, the head monk asked, "Where'd you go?" Zen teachers have often traditionally opened an interview with this question. Where have you come from? What are they checking? Yamada Roshi says that the head monk has laid a trap. "Just strolling in the hills," Ch'ang Sha answered. Has he been aimless? Has he fallen into the trap or evaded it? Does he even see it? And what does the head monk make of this response? He seems to drill down on his request with a, "No, really, where did you go?" Ch'ang Sha then responds with greater detail. "First, I went following the scented grasses. Then I returned following the falling flowers." Very intimate. Is he just talking about a walk in the spring? I don't think so. He's talking about living intimately. He is talking about living with your own head on your shoulders. He is talking about this very moment, this very mind. He is drawn forward without resistance, agitation, or complex cogitation, entering fully into what is. What is left behind after passing through falls off and away on its own, step by step. Profound purity and tranquility reigns. Nothing to be called self, nothing to be called other. Yamada Roshi, when at the age of 47, as a Japanese executive, experienced deep enlightenment, he wrote to his teacher, Nakagawa Soen Roshi. His letter, which you can find in the 3 Pillars of Zen, in part reads like this: "Surely the world has changed with awakening, but in what way? The ancients said the enlightened mind is comparable to a fish swimming. That's exactly how it is. There's no stagnation. I feel no hindrance. Everything flows smoothly, freely. Everything goes naturally. This limitless freedom is beyond all expression. What a wonderful world." Dogen, the great teacher of Buddhism, said Zen is the wide, all-encompassing gate of compassion. I am grateful, so grateful. As Hsueh said, I am grateful for that answer. Yaiko Iwasaki, the young bedridden Japanese girl whose deep enlightenment is given an entire section in the 3 Pillars of Zen, wrote to her teacher, Harada Roshi, saying, "I am in the center of the Great Way, where everything is natural, without strain, neither hurried nor halting, where there are no Buddhas, no you, nothing, no you, that's right, nothing, and where I see without my eyes and hear without my ears. No trace remains of what I have written. There is neither pen nor paper nor words, nothing at all." Hakuin, in a letter to his student, the layman Ishi, wrote, "Students who have not yet penetrated to the source should not be troubled if their entrance into enlightenment is slow in coming, but they should worry if their practice is not pure and genuine. Students who have already penetrated to attainment should not be troubled if people fail to revere them, but they should be concerned about the difficulty of achieving practice that is pure and genuine." Pure and genuine. When walking out our door on a spring morning after only a few steps, how often might we vanish not into the scent of flowers, or into the feel of our steps, or into bird song and spring breezes and green leaves, but into our heads and our thoughts of what's ahead, what's just been, what we forgot to do, what we must suddenly remember. So while we may get where we're going, we're often never really there, as we're caught up in thinking of what's next, or what's past, or what we must do, or where we must be, as old habitual loops of self-centered thought roll on and on. No rest for the wicked. When Gauguin was in France, he dreamed of Tahiti and all he meant to paint once he was there. As he lay dying in Polynesia, his last paintings were of the snow-covered hills of the Brittany he'd left behind. Wallace Stevens, in the poem The Well-Dressed Man with a Beard, wrote, "It can never be satisfied, the mind. Never. It can never be satisfied, the mind. Never." The head monk sees his opening and pushes back. "Aha! So you are full of the spring then, aren't you? Or this is indeed the spring mood. Or, more pointedly, you've lost yourself in enjoyment of the beauty of springtime, haven't you? In short, what a pleasant samadhi you've found for yourself. Sand in the rice, thorns in the mud." He is continuing his initial challenge. "You've forgotten the real ground, haven't you?" is what he's saying. There are many samadhis we may enjoy and work with. All can be essential aspects of our lives, and in part are why we do what we do. There is the samadhi of making or listening to music, the samadhi of watching movies, samadhis of working, cooking, eating, socializing, writing, camping, samadhis of our hobbies. I spent a number of years personally enjoying the samadhi of motorcycling. These are all forms of gathered attention in which we forget ourselves and become absorbed in what pleases us. Forgetting ourselves is a core relief. Drudgery proceeds by the tick-tock of the clock, but such hours of absorption, samadhi, have no clock face at all. In Japan, lay folks laugh together about the absorbing samadhis of making money and the compelling joys of a life of thought in academia. All are events of self-forgetting and intimacy, but in terms of realization, they are facsimiles. That great iconoclast Zen master Ikkyu wrote, "When I tried to remember, I always forgot. But once I forgot, I never forget. When I tried to remember, I always forgot. But once I forgot, I never forget." Has Ch'ang Sha forgotten or forgotten? Has he forgotten to forget? While the monk's question sounds innocent and appreciative, Ch'ang Sha not only responds with a clear answer, but transforms the implicit challenge into an elegant teaching. He steps in and through the marvelous springtime, skillfully opening the head monk's challenge into an even more total view. What he says is, it is even better than the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers. Aha! It is even better than the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers. He is not caught up, and he is not defensive. Instead, he takes another step forward, taking the head monk and us with him beyond vast, empty clarity itself into our potential human maturity. Ch'ang Sha, who created the poem, "You who sit on the top of 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and worlds of the 10 directions are your total body," means what he says. Take a step from the top of the pole. It is even better than the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers. Worlds of the 10 direction are your total body. Yamada Roshi used to teach that experiencing vast emptiness is not enough. It's only halfway. It's the top of the pole. He would say, you must beat the empty sky. Emptiness is not an add-on, a characteristic we attain that's not here now. The core of Prajna Paramita's perfect wisdom is that form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Roshi Kapleau used to say that to realize this to even a slight degree changes, or at least begins to shift the way we live, the way we respond to the actual things and events of our lives, the way we work with our own shortcomings, our aging, our impermanence. Whether we know it or not, this is what fundamentally happens over time with sincere breath-by-breath practice realization itself, whether we ever come to consciously know it or not. But knowing it, even slightly, which of course is termed kensho, seeing self-nature, glimpsing self-nature, even slightly, is transformative. Ch'ang Sha presents the fact this is not just a samadhi, it is the dragon samadhi, which swallows everything. From such a perspective, life itself, this very life, is it. After a long gray winter, the return of spring, a buzzing, blowing, blooming life can hit us like a revelation. Colors, smells, sights, sounds, buds unfold, green leaves appear, flowers sway, birds sing. Golden sunlight warms our hands and faces. Windows thrown open, we put on a light jacket and head off into that long-awaited walk on ice-free streets and trails. In his reply, Ch'ang Sha steps beyond the realization of emptiness we might have thought was the goal of Zen, the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers, and steps from the top of the 100-foot pole. Of course, autumn has its own beauties. Cooling breezes, turning leaves, falling leaves reveal the depth of an uncluttered landscape now fully, nakedly revealed. It is harvest time. Fulfillment. Yun Men, when asked, how is it when the tree withers and the leaves fall answered, body exposed in the golden breeze, body exposed in the golden breeze. This is Hekiganroku, Blue Cliff Record, case 27. It is fulfillment, and it is a subtle point, one we can easily miss if we start thinking that empty place is itself it. But Yun Men was making a true point, and Ch'ang Sha, faced with a similar challenge, wants us to be clear, which he does, by exposing the bind that Zen itself can put us in. We work hard on Mu and other koans, work hard to get past appearances and emerge beyond the limitation of form, and in so doing, can subconsciously come to think that form is secondary and realization of emptiness the point. Yet even the Buddha himself, with his most profound enlightenment, did not stay seated beneath the Bodhi tree. He knew that his former ascetic disciples were waiting, and he got up, and he walked to the deer park at Sarnath and began teaching. Ch'ang Sha strolls out among the hills, then wends his way back, at ease going, at ease returning. Yamada Roshi says that Ch'ang Sha's perspective is so profound, it is actually almost impossible to get a sense of what he's saying here until we ourselves are fairly far along in our own practice. Until then, we're still focused on climbing the pole. And yet, just knowing of Ch'ang Sha's mature perspective, something seeps in that refines our own sense of what Zen truly offers. Ch'ang Sha, the tiger, is not challenging us here. He is revealing our own potential, showing us what it is to be home. This, he says, is even better than that wonderful, and it is wonderful, moment of the dew falling on the lotus flowers. That is, of the falling away of all self-centeredness in the non-dualistic realization of our own vast, empty, bare of all thoughts, original nature. Above the heavens, below the heavens, I alone, the honored one. What other could there then be? Wallace Stevens, in his poem The Snowman, speaks of the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. The top of the mountain, the top of the pole is bare. Nothing is there, and nothing happens there. As the talking heads put it, heaven. Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. It is not a place we can settle down and live or cling to. Rather, stepping forward into this moment, we turn the personally intimate realization of practice into actual living. Some of the Christian mystics, the Desert Fathers, did try to stay on the top of the pole, literally. They built platforms at the top of poles and lived up there, hauling up food and water that attendants prepared for them below. There have been Buddhist hermits as well, and more power to them. And for some, that is most definitely the right and deepest path. And there may be periods when dedicated solo practice may be right for any of us. But there is a caution that emerges in Zen and from Ch'ang Sha's response. Remember Kuei-shan's prediction about Deshan? He said that Deshan was going to settle up on a lofty peak and, seated up there, proceed to laugh at Buddhas and abuse patriarchs. Now, this is high praise, but it is also profound criticism at the same time. Second to none, he's rather stuck in his realization of great equality. And of course, this being up on a lofty peak did not necessarily have anything to do with physical isolation. One can look down on others wherever we are, even if we stand below sea level. Hakuin, no stranger to strenuous and isolated practice, wrote letters warning his senior students about heading off into isolated practice instead of continuing at the temple with the teacher and others. There are degrees and levels and timing. Ripeness, really, is all. In his comment at the end of this case of Ch'ang Sha's stroll in the hills, and his final answer that it is even better than the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers, Hsueh says, I am grateful for that answer. This is rare for Hsueh to be so straightforward and so personal. He is coming forward telling us to look carefully and really take in Ch'ang Sha's wonderful response. Form is not only emptiness. Emptiness is also form. In short, seen fully, truly, and whole, this very life with its issues, its challenges, is totally it. Thinking of using Zen practice as an escape from life, spiritual bypassing is the current catchword for this, is self-defeating, like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. The world of differences, of comings and goings, gains and losses, sickness and health, grasses and flowers, friendship, family, work, vows, commitments, joys, sorrows, ups and downs, just as it is it. Which means that lay practice, practicing in life, is not secondary to monastic or semi-monastic practice at all. In fact, it may be, at least in our times, the most direct path for maturing. Blake wrote, eternity is in love with the productions of time. Eternity is in love with the productions of time. Deeply so. Thanks to Ch'ang Sha, we see that the point of Zen, if we might say such a thing, is to help us awake from the tormenting nightmare of alienation, isolation, and distance so we can find ourselves intimately at home now, at ease and settled and content in our actual lives. This does not mean, of course, not working on maturing further or not working to change something that needs to be changed. Zen's point is not to escape from life and spend all our days facing a wall. That would make all we do in life itself a violation of the point of practice. Ch'ang Sha tells us that is not our full character, nor our actual nature. Being children, parents, partners, embodying bodhisattva vows in meaningful work, careers, and fully compassionate and passionate living in the midst of genuine awareness of and understanding of injustice, impermanence, and aging is the point. The Buddha said that the Sangha is a noble Sangha, Aryan Sangha, Arya Sangha. It means noble in Sanskrit. Noble action, compassionate and decent living can only be achieved in the very face of impermanence, a fundamental awareness of the brevity of life. Being serious Zen practitioners doesn't mean turning our backs on our lives and isolating ourselves up on that lofty peak or with our face to the wall. Of course, this has nothing to do with needing and taking time to periodically do just that. Withdraw in sesshin and face ourselves fully, and so give ourselves an opportunity as ordinary human beings to deepen and then return to our lives better able to really be partners, parents, teachers, doctors, lawyers, cooks, carpenters, whatever it is we choose to be, but more fully and more gratefully. I'm grateful for that answer. At the end of The Lord of the Rings, after his incredibly courageous and deeply selfless journey to Mount Doom to help Frodo destroy the Ring of Power, Sam returns after seeing Frodo and Gandalf off from Middle-earth at the Grey Havens. Tolkien writes, and he went on, and there was a yellow light and a fire within. And the evening meal was ready, and he was expected. And Rose drew him in, and set him in his chair, and put little Eleanor upon his lap. He drew a breath. "Well, I'm back," he said. That's the last line of the entire Lord of the Rings. Well, I'm back. I'm home. How deeply satisfying. Completely at ease on this planet Earth, just as I am, strolling with Ch'ang Sha into this moment of life, just as it is, or can be, just as it is, or can be, admirably fulfilling. Ups and downs, hills and valleys, we take them as they come. The head monk upholds half a picture, half a story, and makes his excellent points, and simultaneously reveals a limitation, which gives Ch'ang Sha room to open the dialogue further. Of course, the head monk might be doing this in order to give Ch'ang Sha a chance to clarify everything further, the two working together, like musicians playing off one another, to create a music that could never have been with only one player. Together, Ch'ang Sha and the head monk point out the great way. Aiken Roshi says that Ch'ang Sha's stroll in the hills is one of our most important koans, second only to Mu. In fact, it is the balance to Mu, opening up Zen practice realization as a well-lived life. Aiken Roshi also says that in Japan, the words of this case are included in the memorial service for a monk. He lived his life following grasses and flowers. Thus, he came and went. Ch'ang Sha's words are seen as the confirmation of a well-lived life. In Book 11 of the Odyssey, Odysseus meets the great warrior Achilles in the underworld and praises him, saying how great were his doings in life, how lofty even now his station among the honored dead. But Achilles responds, "Better, I say, to break sod as a farmhand for some poor country man on iron rations or rations than lord it over all the exhausted dead. Better, I say, to break sod as a farmhand for some poor countryman on iron rations than lord it over all the exhausted dead." I see echoes of Ch'ang Sha here. Though Achilles aimed for the renown of a short and glorious life, when all is done, he regrets that one-sided choice. Our ordinary life, just as it is irreplaceable, beyond all value, beyond all price. But perhaps even closer to Ch'ang Sha might be the Navajo chant, Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty around me, I walk in beauty. Or Basho's haiku, ah, it is spring, great spring it is now, great, great spring, ah, great, ah, it is spring, great spring it is now, great, great spring, ah, great. Zen Master Hakuin wrote a verse honoring a deceased disciple, which went, raindrops pattering over fallen leaves, although sobering to the soul, can't compare to the intimacy of glorious sunset clouds over yellowing fields of grain. Raindrops pattering over fallen leaves, although sobering to the soul, can't compare to the intimacy of glorious sunset clouds over yellowing fields of grain. These are Ch'ang Sha's words, returning to us through Hakuin. Norman Waddell, superb translator of Hakuin's writings, comments that an annotation by one of Hakuin's disciples adds to this saying by saying, this is old Hakuin's highest mantra. This is old Hakuin's highest mantra. Aiken Roshi, in his book Gateless Barrier, writes, what do you make of Ch'ang Sha's saying that spring is better than the autumn dew falling on the lotus flowers? This is the key to Ch'ang Sha's character and to all mature human character. It relates to the way he reacted to Brother Hui's nothing special in the koan of stepping from the top of the pole, and to Yang Shan's equivocation in the incident of watching the moon together. It's true that spring and autumn can be called the same, but that is just a kind of entry to the way. It is not yet genuine. In autumn, there is no sun warming the earth after a long winter, no grasses or flowers. Spring is the time for strolling about in the hills, leisurely going and coming with the scented grasses and falling flowers becoming one's entire body. So Hsueh comments that he is grateful to Ch'ang Sha for his response. Let us all be grateful. Grateful because Ch'ang Sha is our teacher of Zen in this age of grave danger to the earth and its music, art, animals, and everything else. He is urging that we move off our seats and transform our attitude and our systems. If everything is one, as Brother Hui knew, then it is also vital that we show that fact in our conduct. Worlds of the 10 directions are indeed my total body and yours, and we neglect this primordial truth to our peril. In short, not only we ourselves, but our anguished world, to comment on Aiken Roshi's excellent points, our anguished world itself benefits from such a stroll in the hills, benefits from our stepping off the top of the pole and making our life practice genuine. A verse from Keizon Jokin's transmission of the light, the Denko Roku, goes, though we find clear waters reaching to the vast blue sky in autumn, how can it compare with a hazy moon on a spring night? Most people want it pure white, but sweep as you will, you can never empty the mind. Though we find clear waters reaching to the vast blue sky in autumn, how can it compare with a hazy moon on a spring night? Most people want it pure white, but sweep as you will, you can never empty the mind. Now, isn't that wonderful news? We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.